Maurice Green walked into the fancy restaurant with his heart beating fast. He wore his only good shirt, the blue one with tiny wrinkles that never quite went away no matter how many times he ironed it. His shoes were old but clean, shining from the polish he had rubbed on them that morning. He looked around at the crystal lights hanging from the ceiling like frozen raindrops and felt very small. "Dad, over here." Daniel waved from a big round table in the corner. Maurice smiled when he saw his son. Daniel looked so handsome in his suit, sitting next to Marina, the beautiful girl who had stolen his heart. But Maurice's smile faded when he noticed the other people at the table. Marina's parents sat like a king and queen on their chairs, wearing clothes that probably cost more than Maurice earned in a whole month. "You must be Daniel's father," said Alastair Saunders, Marina's dad. He didn't stand up or shake Maurice's hand. He just looked at him the way someone might look at a bug on the floor. "Yes, sir. I'm Maurice. It's nice to finally meet you both." Maurice reached out his hand anyway. Alastair shook it quickly, like he was afraid of getting dirty. His wife, Fiona, just nodded and took a sip of her wine. The dinner started, and Maurice tried his best. He didn't know which fork to use for the salad, and which one was for the main course. He watched the others and copied what they did, but he could feel Fiona's eyes on him, watching every mistake. "So, Maurice," Fiona said, her voice sweet like honey but with something mean hiding underneath, "what do you do for work?" "I'm a groundskeeper at the community college," Maurice answered proudly. "I take care of the gardens and the buildings. Make sure everything looks nice for the students." "Oh," Fiona said, glancing at her husband. "How simple." "A janitor," Alastair said with a little laugh. "Well, every place needs someone to sweep the floors, I suppose." Maurice's face got hot. "Actually, I do more than—" "Dad does amazing work." Daniel jumped in, his voice tight. "The whole campus looks beautiful because of him. Students always tell me how peaceful the gardens are." "I'm sure it's very nice," Fiona said, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. "It's just so different from our world. Alastair owns 3 restaurants, you know? We're used to, well, a certain level of sophistication." Marina squeezed Daniel's hand under the table. Her face looked sad and angry at the same time. The rest of dinner was terrible. Every time Maurice spoke, Fiona and Alastair found ways to make him feel small. When he mentioned he lived in a small apartment, Fiona talked about their big house with 6 bedrooms. When he said he was excited about the wedding, Alastair bragged about how much money they were spending to make it worthy of our daughter. Maurice stayed quiet and ate his food. He had learned a long time ago that some people would always look down on him. It hurt, but he could handle it. What he couldn't handle was seeing the pain in Daniel's eyes. After dinner, in the parking lot, Daniel grabbed his father's arm. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I didn't know they would be like that." Maurice patted his son's hand. "It's okay, Danny. I've dealt with worse." "It's not okay." Daniel's eyes were wet with tears. "They treated you like you're nobody, but you're everything to me. You raised me all by yourself after Mom died. You worked 2 jobs so I could go to college. You're the best father anyone could ask for. And you're the best son," Maurice said softly. "Don't let them ruin your happiness. Marina is a wonderful girl. That's all that matters." But Daniel couldn't sleep that night. He lay in bed thinking about his father. He remembered being 7 years old when his mother got sick and died. He remembered Maurice crying in the bathroom where he thought Daniel couldn't hear. He remembered his father working at the college during the day and then cleaning offices at night, coming home so tired he could barely stand, but always with a smile for Daniel. Maurice had given up everything for him. And now Marina's parents were treating him like trash. Marina couldn't sleep either. She loved her parents. But tonight she was ashamed of them. She called Daniel. "I'm so sorry about dinner," she whispered into the phone. "It's not your fault. I'm going to talk to them. They need to apologize." "Don't," Daniel said. "It'll just make things worse. Let's just get through the wedding. Then we can start our own life, away from all this." "Your dad is invited to everything," Marina said firmly. "I don't care what my parents think. He's going to sit in the front row. He's going to dance at the reception. He's family." Daniel felt love fill his chest. This was why he was marrying Marina. She understood what really mattered. The next few weeks flew by in a blur of wedding planning. Fiona took over everything, turning the wedding into a huge show. She hired the most expensive caterer. She rented a giant white tent decorated with thousands of lights. She ordered flowers from 3 different states. The guest list grew to 200 people. "This is getting crazy," Daniel told Marina one evening as they looked at the plans. "I know," Marina sighed. "Mom wants everyone to see how successful we are, but all I want is to marry you. What if we just ran away? Got married at the courthouse?" Marina laughed, but then she looked serious. "I wish we could, but it would break my mom's heart. And your dad is so excited about the wedding. He calls me every week to ask if there's anything he can do to help." Daniel smiled. That was his dad. Always wanted to help, always thinking of others. The wedding day arrived on a perfect Saturday morning. The sun shone bright in a blue sky. Birds sang in the trees around the big tent Fiona had set up on her huge property. Everything looked like a fairy tale. But Maurice felt nervous as he got ready in his small apartment. He had bought a new suit, the first one he'd owned in 10 years. It was simple and black, nothing fancy. He looked at himself in the mirror and took a deep breath. Today his son was getting married. Today he would stand proud, no matter what anyone said or thought. He picked up a small package wrapped in brown paper from his desk. Inside was his gift for Daniel and Marina. His heart was full as he held it. This gift meant more than anyone could know. It held a secret he had kept for years. Maurice drove his old truck to the wedding, parking it far from the fancy cars filling the driveway. He walked toward the tent, and immediately he felt people staring. The other guests wore designer dresses and expensive suits. They dripped with gold jewelry and carried designer purses. Maurice looked plain and simple next to them. "Who's that?" he heard someone whisper. "I think that's the groom's father," another voice answered. "Poor thing looks like he wandered in from the wrong party." Soft laughter followed Maurice as he found his seat in the front row. He sat down and looked straight ahead, his face calm even though his heart hurt. Daniel saw his father sitting alone and felt anger burn in his chest. But when Maurice looked up and gave him a thumbs up and a huge smile, Daniel's anger melted into love. His father was the strongest person he knew. The wedding ceremony was beautiful. Marina looked like an angel in her white dress. Daniel's hands shook as he said his vows. Maurice cried happy tears as he watched his little boy become a husband. But after the ceremony, during the reception, things got worse. The gift table sat in the corner of the tent, piled high with enormous wrapped boxes. Some gifts were as big as refrigerators. They were wrapped in shiny paper with huge bows. Maurice walked over and placed a small brown package among the giant gifts. It looked tiny and sad next to all the others. And that's when Fiona Saunders saw it. Fiona Saunders stared at the gift table like she had just seen something terrible. Her eyes landed on Maurice's small brown package, sitting between a giant silver-wrapped box and an enormous basket covered in gold ribbons. "Alistair," she hissed to her husband, "come look at this." Alistair walked over, holding a glass of champagne. "What is it, dear?" Fiona pointed at Maurice's gift with one long finger, her nail painted bright red. "That pathetic little thing. I bet that's from the janitor." "Oh my," Alistair said, leaning closer. "It looks like he wrapped it in a paper bag. How embarrassing." They both laughed, not even trying to be quiet about it. Other guests started to notice. They wandered over to the gift table, curious about what was so funny. "Which gift are we laughing at?" asked Mrs. Peterson, one of Fiona's rich friends. "That one," Fiona pointed again. "The sad little package. Daniel's father brought it. The poor man probably couldn't afford anything better. He's a janitor, you know. Actually, he's a groundskeeper." Marina's voice cut to the crowd like a knife. Everyone turned. Marina stood there in her beautiful wedding dress, her face red with anger. Daniel was right behind her, his hands clenched into fists. "Mom, stop it," Marina said. "That's Daniel's father you're talking about." "Oh, sweetheart, I'm not being mean," Fiona said with a fake sweet smile. "I'm just being realistic. Look at all these wonderful gifts. Our friends brought crystal vases expensive art, kitchen sets that cost thousands of dollars. And then there's that. She waved her hand at Morris's package. It's just the truth, dear. The truth is you're being cruel, Daniel said, his voice shaking. My father is a good man. He worked his whole life to give me everything I needed. He doesn't have a lot of money, but he has a big heart. Of course, Alistair said, putting his hand on Daniel's shoulder. Daniel stepped away from him. We're not saying he's a bad person. We're just saying, well, look at it. It's clearly the gift of someone who couldn't afford to be here. More guests gathered around now. Some looked uncomfortable. Others whispered to each other behind their hands. Maurice stood far away, near the food table, watching everything. His face looked calm, but his eyes were sad. Maybe we should open gifts later, Marina suggested, trying to save the moment. Let's just dance and enjoy the party. No, Fiona said. I think we should open them now. After all, we want to thank everyone properly. Let's start with the biggest ones and work our way down. She sat down while looking right at Morris's small package. Daniel felt sick to his stomach. He wanted to grab his father's gift and hide it. He wanted to yell at everyone to leave. But Marina touched his arm gently. Let her do this, Marina whispered. Trust me? Daniel didn't understand, but he trusted his new wife. One by one, they opened the big gifts. Each box revealed something more expensive than the last. A set of china plates painted with real gold. A fancy coffee machine that could make 20 different drinks. Crystal wine glasses from Italy. A painting of flowers that Fiona announced cost $5,000. The guests clapped and cheered after each gift. The people who brought them stood up proudly, smiling and waving. Finally, only Morris's small package was left on the table. The tent got very quiet. Everyone stared at the brown paper wrapping. It looked even smaller now that all the other gifts were gone. Well, Fiona said loudly, I suppose we should open the last one, though I can't imagine what could be in such a tiny package. Maybe it's a keychain, someone in the crowd joked. A few people giggled. Or a picture frame from the dollar store, another voice said. More laughter. Maurice stood very still. His face showed no anger, no shame. He just watched Daniel with eyes full of love. Daniel's hands shook as he picked up his father's gift. It was heavier than he expected. He could feel something hard inside, something solid. Go ahead, son, Alistair said. Let's see what the janitor brought. Stop calling him that. Daniel shouted. His voice was so loud that everyone jumped. His name is Maurice Green. He's my father, and he's worth more than all of you put together. The tent went completely silent. You could hear the wind rustling the trees outside. You could hear the ice melting in people's drinks. Marina stood next to Daniel, holding his free hand. Open it, honey, she said softly. I think your father has something special to show everyone. Daniel looked at his wife, then at his father. Maurice gave him a small nod. With trembling fingers, Daniel tore open the brown paper. Inside was a simple wooden frame. And inside that frame was something that made Daniel's breath catch in his throat. It was a painting, but not just any painting. It was the most beautiful painting Daniel had ever seen in his life. The picture showed a lake at sunset. The water glowed with colors Daniel didn't even know existed together. Purple and gold and pink and orange, all swirling and dancing. Trees surrounded the lake, their leaves painted with such tiny, careful brushstrokes that each one looked real enough to touch. In the distance, mountains rose up purple and mysterious. A small boat floated on the water, empty and peaceful. The whole painting seemed to glow with its own light. It looked like magic trapped inside a frame. Daniel stared at it, unable to speak, his eyes filled with tears. What is it? Fiona demanded, pushing forward. Let me see. She grabbed the frame from Daniel's hands and held it up for everyone to see. The crowd pressed forward. Then everyone gasped at once. The painting was so beautiful that even Fiona's mean friends had to admit it. The colors seemed to shine. The details were perfect. It looked like a window into another world, a peaceful, beautiful world where everything was calm and lovely. This is actually quite good, Mrs. Peterson said, surprised. Good, said Mr. Chun, an art collector who had brought the expensive flower painting. This is extraordinary. Look at the brushwork. Look at the way the light plays on the water. This is the work of a master. He took the painting from Fiona's hands and looked closer. His eyes went wide. "Wait a minute," he said. "Is that? No, it can't be." "What?" several people asked at once. Mr. Chin looked at the bottom corner of the painting, where a signature was written in tiny letters. He read it out loud. M. Green. The name hung in the air like smoke. Mr. Chen's face went pale. "M. Green," he repeated. "Maurice Green. Are you the Maurice Green? The painter?" Everyone turned to look at Maurice. Maurice stood very straight, his hands clasped in front of him. He looked different somehow. Taller, stronger, like a king who had been wearing beggar's clothes but was finally revealed. "I used to paint," Maurice said quietly. "A long time ago." "A long time ago?" Mr. Chin practically shouted. Maurice Green was one of the most promising artists of his generation. His paintings were in galleries. Critics loved him. Collectors paid thousands for his work. And then he just disappeared. Everyone wondered what happened to him. The crowd buzzed with whispers. Fiona's face was white. Alistair had stopped smiling. "I don't understand," Fiona said weakly. "You're a janitor." "I'm a groundskeeper," Maurice corrected her gently. "And yes, I am. But I used to be a painter." "Why did you stop?" Marina asked. Her voice was full of wonder. Maurice looked at Daniel. His eyes were soft and full of love. "Because 25 years ago, my wife got sick," Maurice said. "She died when Daniel was only 7 years old. I was alone with a little boy to raise. Painting didn't pay the bills. It didn't put food on the table or buy school clothes or pay for doctor visits when Daniel got the flu. So I found a steady job, something reliable, something that would be there every single day." Daniel's tears spilled down his cheeks. "But I never stopped painting," Maurice continued. "Late at night, after Daniel went to bed, I would paint. In my little apartment, I had a corner where I kept my easel. Painting kept me sane. It kept me happy. It reminded me that there was still beauty in the world, even after losing my wife." "Dad," Daniel whispered, "I never knew." "You weren't supposed to know," Maurice said with a smile. "You were supposed to have a childhood. You were supposed to go to college. You were supposed to be happy. That was my job as your father." Mr. Chun was still holding the painting, staring at it like it was made of gold. "Do you know what this is worth?" he asked. Mr. Chun held the painting like it was made of diamonds. His hands shook a little as he looked at every detail. "This painting," he said slowly, "is worth at least $30,000. Maybe more." The whole tent exploded with noise. Everyone started talking at once. Some people gasped. Others pulled out their phones to take pictures. A few guests who had laughed at Morris's gift earlier tried to hide behind other people. Fiona looked like she might faint. Her face went from white to red to white again. Alistair loosened his tie like he couldn't breathe. 30,000? Fiona stammered. "At least," Mr. Chin repeated. Maurice Green's paintings are rare. After he disappeared from the art world, his existing pieces became very valuable. Collectors search for them. Museums want them. And this one, he held it up to the light. This one is fresh, new. It still has that energy, that life. It's worth more than every other gift here combined. Marina covered her mouth with her hands. Tears streamed down her face, but she was smiling. She looked at Maurice with so much love and respect. Daniel couldn't move. He stared at the painting, then at his father, then back at the painting. His whole life, his father had been hiding this amazing talent. His whole life, Maurice had worked simple jobs and lived in a small apartment, when he could have been rich and famous. "Why?" Daniel finally asked, his voice breaking. "Dad, why did you give it all up?" Maurice walked forward. The crowd parted for him like he was royalty. When he reached Daniel, he put both hands on his son's shoulders. "Because you were more important than any painting," Maurice said simply. "You were more important than money or fame or anything else in the world. After your mother died, I had a choice. I could chase my art career and barely see you, leaving you with babysitters and alone after school. Or I could find a steady job with normal hours, So I could be there when you woke up and when you went to bed. So I could help with your homework. So I could pack your lunch and go to your baseball games and take care of you when you were sick. But you gave up everything, Daniel sobbed. No, Maurice shook his head. I gave up nothing. I gained everything. I got to watch you grow up. I got to see you graduate high school at the top of your class. I got to help you move into your college dorm. I got to meet Marina and see how happy she makes you. Those things are worth more than all the paintings in all the museums in the whole world. Daniel threw his arms around his father and cried. He cried for all the years his father had sacrificed. He cried because he finally understood how much he was loved. He cried because he was so proud to be Maurice Green's son. Marina joined the hug, wrapping her arms around both of them. The three of them stood there together while the whole tent watched in silence. Finally, Fiona stepped forward. Her face was red with shame. Tears ran down her cheeks, ruining her expensive makeup. "Maurice," she said, her voice shaking. I am so sorry." Alistair stood next to her, looking at the ground. "We were terrible to you. We judged you. We made fun of you. We thought you were nothing because you didn't have money or fancy clothes. But you're not nothing," Fiona continued. "You're everything. You're what a real father looks like. You're what real love looks like." She wiped her eyes. "I've been so focused on money and status and impressing people that I forgot what really matters. Can you ever forgive me?" Maurice looked at them for a long moment. Then he smiled, that same gentle smile he always had. "Of course I forgive you," he said. "We all make mistakes. What matters is that we learn from them." Fiona hugged Maurice, crying on his shoulder. Alistair shook his hand for real this time, holding it tight and looking Maurice in the eye with respect. One by one, the other guests came forward. The ones who had laughed apologized. The ones who had whispered mean things looked ashamed. Even Mrs. Peterson, Fiona's snobbiest friend, admitted she had been wrong. "I thought expensive meant valuable," she said to Maurice. "But you've taught us that value comes from the heart." The party changed after that. The music started again, but it felt different, warmer, more real. People stopped trying to impress each other and started actually talking and laughing together. Maurice danced with Marina, the new bride. As they swayed to the music, Marina whispered, "Thank you for raising such an amazing man. Thank you for being you. Thank you for loving my son," Maurice whispered back. "That's all a father can hope for." Daniel danced with his father next. They didn't say anything. They just held each other and moved to the music, while tears ran down both their faces. Mr. Chin approached them after the dance. "Maurice," he said, "I have to ask, would you ever consider painting again? Professionally, I mean. The art world would welcome you back with open arms. You could have galleries, shows. You could make so much money." Maurice thought about it for a moment. Then he smiled and shook his head. "No, thank you," he said. "I have a good job. I have a little apartment that's just right for me. And now I have a daughter-in-law and, hopefully someday, grandchildren to spoil. I'll keep painting for myself in my corner at night. That's enough for me. But don't you want to be famous?" Mr. Chin asked, confused. "I am famous," Maurice said, looking at Daniel. "I'm famous to the one person who matters. My son knows who I am. My son knows what I did for him. That makes me the richest man in the world." At the end of the night, as guests left and the lights in the tent began to dim, Daniel and Marina stood holding the painting. They had already decided where it would go in their new home, right above the fireplace in the living room, where they would see it every single day. "This is our most precious wedding gift," Marina said. "It's more than a gift," Daniel added. "It's a reminder that love is the only thing that really matters. A reminder that the best things in life aren't things at all." Maurice gathered his old jacket to leave. He had a long drive back to his small apartment. He was tired but happy. So happy. "Dad, wait!" Daniel called out. "Don't go yet. Stay with us tonight. We have a hotel suite. It's huge. Please." Maurice hesitated. "I don't want to intrude on your wedding night." "You could never intrude," Marina said, taking his hand. "You're a family, the most important family." So Maurice stayed. The three of them sat up late into the night, talking and laughing and looking at old photos Daniel had brought. Maurice told stories about Daniel as a little boy that made Marina laugh until her stomach hurt. Daniel told stories about his father's kindness that made Morris's eyes water. Outside, the stars shone bright in the dark sky. Inside, a family that had been broken by death and unkindness was whole again, put back together by love and truth, and a painting that meant everything. The next morning, Fiona and Alistair came to say goodbye before Daniel and Marina left for their honeymoon. Fiona hugged Maurice tight. "Will you come to dinner next week?" she asked. "Just you and us? I want to start over. I want to know the real you." "I'd like that very much," Maurice said. As Daniel and Marina drove away in their car, kids rattling behind them and a "just married" sign in the window, they looked back and saw Maurice standing with Fiona and Alistair, all of them waving. "Your dad changed everything," Marina said. "He always does." Daniel replied with a smile. "That's who he is. He changes lives without even trying. He just loves people, and that changes everything." Years later, the painting still hung above their fireplace. Daniel and Marina had 3 children, and every night before bed, the kids would stand in front of it and ask Grandpa Maurice to tell them the story of the wedding day. Maurice would sit in his favorite chair. The kids gathered at his feet, and he would tell them about love and sacrifice, about how real treasure isn't found in stores or wrapped in shiny paper. Real treasure lives in the heart. Real treasure is family. Real treasure is doing the right thing, even when it's hard. "So you gave up being famous to take care of Dad?" the oldest child would ask. "I didn't give up anything," Maurice would always say. "I got everything." And the painting would glow in the fireplace light, its colors still bright, its beauty still perfect. A reminder that one man's love could change everything, that the smallest gift could hold the biggest meaning, that judging someone by their job or their clothes or their bank account was the biggest mistake anyone could make. Maurice Green lived a simple life. He never became rich. He never became famous to the world. But he became everything to the people who mattered. And in the end, that was more valuable than all the treasures in all the world. If this story touched your heart, please share, and subscribe. Help us spread stories that remind us what truly matters in life. Comment below. What's the most meaningful gift you've ever received? Hit that notification bell so you never miss our inspiring stories. Remember, never judge a book by its cover. Never judge a person by their job or their clothes. The most valuable people are often the quietest ones. The biggest treasures are often wrapped in the simplest paper. And love, real, sacrificing, unconditional love, is worth more than all the gold in the world.